seared into the memories of Elvis fans worldwide. Imagine the king himself, electrifying the stage with his legendary charisma when suddenly chaos erupts. Four figures charge forward, breaking the magic of the moment, and what happens next is nothing short of chilling. The sounds of the frenzy were captured in a rare audio recording that holds secrets you won't believe. But here's the question. If your favorite artist faced an attack right before your eyes, how would you react? Stay with us as we unravel the shocking story behind this unforgettable night. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was known for commanding the stage with an unmatched energy that captivated audiences worldwide. His live performances were more than just concerts. They were experiences, moments where fans felt connected to his charisma and larger-than-life persona. But on one fateful night, that electrifying connection was shattered by an unexpected and shocking event that sent waves of panic through the crowd. The energy of the performance shifted dramatically, leaving fans stunned and desperate for answers. What truly unfolded during those critical moments has remained shrouded in mystery, until now. In this video, we uncover a rare and spine-chilling audio recording from that very night, a piece of history that captures the chaos as it erupted in real time. But that's not all. As the tension builds, we'll also hear from Sonny West, a trusted member of Elvis's inner circle, who provides a gripping first-hand account of what happened and the following startling details. Stay tuned, because the revelations we're about to share will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this unforgettable moment. The night was supposed to be like any other for Elvis Presley. A sold-out crowd, electrifying music, and an atmosphere thick with anticipation. But as the performance reached its peak, something completely unexpected and unnerving happened. Out of nowhere, four men broke through the crowd and stormed the stage with unsettling determination. Their intentions were unclear, their presence alarming, and the energy of the audience shifted in an instant. Fans, once enthralled by the music, were now gripped with fear and confusion, watching helplessly as chaos unfolded before their eyes. In the midst of the mayhem, Elvis's trusted team sprang into action with remarkable bravery. They quickly formed a protective barrier around him, their sole focus to shield the king from harm. As the men closed in, details began to surface. One of them was carrying an object later identified as a weapon. The tension was palpable, every moment feeling like an eternity as the crowd watched with bated breath. What exactly was their plan? And how did Elvis and his team manage to defuse the situation so swiftly? The answers lie in the gripping details and rare audio recording that reveal the full extent of what transpired that night. What if I told you that the chaos of that unforgettable night wasn't just witnessed, but captured in a way that sends chills down your spine? Among the sea of fans that evening, one person had the presence of mind to hit record, preserving the raw sounds of the pandemonium that erupted. The frantic shouts, the unmistakable commotion, and a few hauntingly clear moments of Elvis's own voice. All of it was etched onto a rare audio recording. This isn't just a piece of history. It's an unfiltered window into the terrifying moments that unfolded on stage. Hearing it, you can almost feel the tension in the air, as if you were right there among the crowd, witnessing the unthinkable. As the audio plays, the details start to come alive. You hear the surge of the audience, gasps of disbelief, and the muffled sounds of movement that hint at the chaos unraveling on stage. Was that a shout of warning? Or perhaps the sound of someone being restrained? Each moment in the recording leaves you more curious, pulling you deeper into the mystery. But here's the thing, what you've heard so far is just a glimpse. The full story and the shocking truths revealed by this recording are even more gripping than you can imagine. Stay with us as we take you step by step through this rare piece of history, uncovering what really happened that night. Now, let's shift to someone who experienced this unforgettable night firsthand. Sonny West, a trusted member of Elvis's inner circle and a key figure in his legendary security team. Sonny wasn't just an observer, he was right in the thick of the chaos, witnessing every detail unfold. His vivid retelling brings the event to life in a way that words alone cannot capture. He describes the attackers' actions with chilling clarity, their unexpected rush to the stage, the determination in their movements, and the moments of pure uncertainty as the team quickly assessed the threat. These weren't just ordinary fans. They were individuals whose motives remained unclear, making the situation even more alarming. Sonny also sheds light on the incredible teamwork and quick thinking that ultimately ensured Elvis's safety. He recounts how the security team moved instinctively, forming a protective barrier around Elvis within seconds. Each team member had a role to play, and they executed it flawlessly, diffusing a potentially disastrous situation before it spiraled further out of control. Sonny's account is filled with gripping details, from the discovery of a concealed weapon to the tense standoff as the attackers were removed from the venue. Through his eyes, we gain an intimate glimpse into the chaos and bravery of that night, a moment where everything hung in the balance. Yet the king and his team triumphed against the odds. Stay tuned, because Sonny's story reveals layers of this shocking event that few have ever heard before.
That were into topless bars and dope, and we found out later when the Las Vegas police ran lights on, they had carried arms. This one guy runs up on the stage and starts towards Elvis, and he's got a sweater over his hand and his forearm. Red was behind him, caught up with him just before he got there. Grabbed him in a headlock and just kept going right off the stage with him. Didn't even interrupt the show. I mean, Elvis was that. Then he turned him over to a security guard back there, and he came back out because now the rest of the table, about 6 or 8 more guys, are starting to come up there. One of them's got some tape on his knuckles. And so Elvis confronted him, and then I jumped in between, and Jerry Schilling jumped in between. Rib came back, and we started just throwing them off the stage. And they were disrupting the show, and one of the guys had a sword cane, which we found out later was just a cane to us, but the police, when they arrested him, he had a sword cane, which was he had a weapon that he wasn't supposed to have. So they took them, but as they were taking these folks out, the police, hotel security, they were taking these people out, and as they did, fans were hitting on them as they went by like a gauntlet. How dare you do that? And Elvis is up there spinning around doing karate kicks and everything like that. There's no one around him. He's whipping up on somebody up there. But afterwards he said, I'll break their necks if they come back up here again. Well, they took them down, they ran a maintenance when they found out what all they were in. Some of them all of them had records. And they told them about the Memphis Mafia. Well, now these guys took the Memphis Mafia to be mafia, like New York and Kansas City, New York. They asked him to please just they thought they had stepped into a hornet's nest. They weren't thinking about us. They thought there was a Memphis Mafia other than us that was behind Elvis, and they asked to be escorted.
The aftermath of that chaotic night raised more questions than answers, leaving fans and insiders alike wondering, what drove these individuals to rush the stage? What were their intentions? As the attackers were subdued and escorted away, a startling discovery added a chilling layer to the incident. One of them had been carrying a sword cane, a seemingly ordinary object hiding a concealed blade. This revelation sent shockwaves through Elvis's team and fans, as it underscored the seriousness of the threat they had just faced. Who were these men, and why were they armed at a live performance? These questions lingered long after the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, leaving an unsettling cloud over an otherwise electrifying night. In the days that followed, the event became a pivotal moment in the way security was handled at Elvis's concerts. The team didn't just brush this off as an isolated incident. They recognized it as a wake-up call. Security measures were tightened, protocols reevaluated, and the safety of both Elvis and his audience was prioritized like never before. The attackers, removed from the venue under heavy guard, were left to face the consequences of their actions, though the details of their motivations remained murky. What's clear is that this event changed the landscape of live performances for the king, serving as a stark reminder that even the brightest spotlight can cast the darkest shadows. Stay tuned, because there's even more to uncover about how this night shaped the future of Elvis's iconic career. If you've been captivated by this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive into Elvis's fascinating life. Don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying the content. It helps us bring you more untold stories just like this. And we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. What do you think motivated the attackers that night? Let's keep the conversation going. The king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, was a legend not just for his music, but for the energy he brought to every performance, leaving audiences spellbound night after night. His passion and intensity on stage were unmatched, captivating fans around the world. But on one particular night, something unexpected happened, an incident so shocking that it would forever change how people saw the man behind the music. When a member of his own team, a backup singer, decided she couldn't continue on stage with him, Elvis's reaction left everyone in stunned silence. What he did next went beyond anyone's imagination and became a moment that those close to him would never forget. It was a scene that hinted at a side of Elvis Presley few ever saw, a side that, even now, is difficult to believe. Number 6. Background context. Elvis Presley was more than a performer. He was a phenomenon. Rising from humble beginnings to become the undisputed king of rock and roll, he brought a fiery passion to every stage he stepped on. With his signature moves, soulful voice, and captivating presence, Elvis was a force that no audience could ignore. Fans crowded every venue, hanging on to his every word, every note, and every swivel of his hips. His performances weren't just concerts. They were experiences, marked by a raw intensity that set him apart from anyone else. But Elvis's fierce commitment to his art came with its challenges, sometimes affecting the very people closest to him on stage. His dedicated band and backup singers who worked tirelessly to help bring his vision to life. Among these musicians was Kathy Westmoreland, one of his backup singers, who developed a unique and complex bond with him over the years. Their relationship, like many of Elvis's connections, was layered with both warmth and tension. Kathy, with her own incredible talent, complemented Elvis's vocal power, and the two shared moments of professional synergy that left audiences mesmerized. But beneath the harmonies and stage chemistry, there were simmering emotions and occasional misunderstandings. Elvis was known for being exacting, even unpredictable, when it came to his performances, and this intensity sometimes led to friction with those around him. Kathy, in particular, felt the strain as Elvis's behavior became increasingly difficult to predict. Yet, despite the ups and downs, she continued to stand by him, sharing the stage and supporting his musical journey, even when it meant facing personal challenges of her own. By 1975, Elvis's tour was fraught with tension, and his performances were becoming erratic. The magic that once defined his shows had taken on a darker edge, with emotions running high among his crew and musicians. This particular tour marked a turbulent period in Elvis's life, both on stage and off, and each performance seemed to carry a sense of uncertainty. Audiences were drawn not only to Elvis's legendary energy, but also to the palpable tension that seemed to follow him from one concert to the next. As the tour progressed, it became clear to those around him that the king was struggling, and this struggle would soon come to a head in one unforgettable encounter, one that would reveal a shocking side of Elvis that no one expected. What happened next would leave his team and the world stunned. Number 5. Escalation of tensions. Onstage. As the tour wore on, a darker side of Elvis's onstage persona began to surface, one that few had ever seen. Tensions with his backup singers, particularly Kathy Westmoreland, had been brewing, and they soon became part of his live act in an unsettling way. Elvis, who was known for his sharp wit and humor, began making pointed, disparaging remarks about Kathy in front of the audience. Rumors had circulated that Kathy had started dating another band member, and whether out of jealousy or frustration, Elvis didn't hold back in airing his thoughts on the matter. With a mix of playful sarcasm and harsh jabs, he began calling her out in ways that left her, and others, uncomfortably vulnerable under the spotlight. It was shocking to see someone as private as Kathy drawn into such public scrutiny by the very man she had loyally supported, and the rift between them was becoming all too evident to those in the crowd. The boiling point arrived during one particularly disastrous concert where Elvis's frustrations seemed to spill over entirely. As he continued to make demeaning remarks on stage, the tension snapped. One by one, his backup singers began to walk off stage, unwilling to endure any more of the uncomfortable spectacle. The atmosphere in the venue shifted from excitement to awkwardness, with the audience sensing that something was very wrong behind the scenes. It wasn't just a professional disruption, it was an emotional fracture that shook the entire tour. For Elvis's fans, who had come to see their idol perform, this unexpected turn of events felt surreal. It was as if the carefully polished image of the king of rock and roll was starting to unravel right before their eyes, exposing a side of Elvis that many had never imagined existed. In the midst of this turmoil, Kathy made a bold choice that no one had anticipated. Refusing to tolerate any more disrespect, she decided she would no longer take the stage with Elvis. Her refusal sent shockwaves through the entire team, and word of it quickly spread among the crew. For someone as dedicated as Kathy to draw a line so firmly was a move that few would have expected, especially given her long-standing loyalty to Elvis. Her absence on stage left a noticeable void, and the atmosphere backstage was thick with tension and uncertainty. Those close to the situation held their breath, wondering just how Elvis would respond to this act of defiance, and what would happen next would leave them more stunned than they could have imagined. Number 4. The shocking incident. Following the explosive events of that disastrous concert, Elvis did something that took everyone by surprise. He asked to see Kathy Westmoreland. For a moment, she hesitated. She knew this wasn't going to be a casual conversation, but there was no turning back now. Her refusal to go on stage had created a standoff, and she was about to face the consequences. When she entered his suite, the tension in the room was palpable, and her heart raced as she took in the scene before her. There he was, sitting on his bed, wearing his karate pajamas. A familiar sight, yet one that seemed ominous in this particular moment. Elvis didn't look up immediately, but when he did, she could tell this was not the same man she had shared the stage with so many times. In his hands, Elvis held two things that couldn't have been more contrasting: a gift-wrapped wristwatch in one hand, and shockingly, a gun in the other. It was surreal, almost as if he were offering her a choice between danger and forgiveness. Kathy froze, her mind racing as she tried to process what was happening. Elvis looked at her, his expression a strange mix of intensity and calm, and held the gun up alongside the watch. "Which do you want? This or this?" he asked, his voice quiet but heavy with a tension that made her stomach turn. The entire situation felt like something out of a dream, a nightmare she couldn't escape. She knew Elvis had a fascination with firearms, but to see him sitting there, holding a gun and presenting it as some twisted choice, was a moment she would never forget. Kathy later described the sheer terror and confusion that flooded over her in those moments. She could feel her heart pounding, and every instinct told her to get out, to run, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I just smiled and said, 'Why, I'll take the gift, of course, thank you,'" she recalled, her voice betraying a slight tremor as she remembered how close she felt to breaking. Inside, though, she was reeling. "Oh God, what is wrong with him? What is he going to do? She forced herself to maintain a steady exterior, laughing lightly as though it were a joke, but every muscle in her body was tense, prepared for whatever might come next. This encounter would haunt her for years to come, a reminder of how close she came to witnessing a side of Elvis that no one had ever seen, and perhaps no one ever wanted to see. Number 3. Westmoreland's reaction. In that moment, Kathy Westmoreland knew she had to keep her composure, no matter how much fear gripped her. She took a breath, trying to steady herself, and forced a smile as she reached out for the gift-wrapped watch. "Thank you," she said lightly, masking the turmoil that surged within her. It was a choice made in self-preservation. By accepting the gift, she hoped to appease him, to make this tense encounter feel like a misunderstanding rather than the disturbing power play it appeared to be. As she held the watch in her hands, her fingers felt numb, but she maintained her calm, her gaze steady, hoping that her acceptance would end this bewildering moment. Inside, however, she felt anything but calm, her mind racing through every possible reaction Elvis might have and how she could get through this encounter safely. Yet beneath her calm exterior, Kathy's heart was pounding like a drum, each beat a reminder of the sheer terror she felt. Her mind spun with questions and fears, wondering if the Elvis she knew had truly changed, or if she was seeing a side of him she'd never fully understood. She replayed his words over and over, each one carrying an unsettling weight. Outwardly, she maintained a steady demeanor, even managing a small laugh, but inside, her muscles were tense, her instincts screaming to leave. With every second that passed, she felt like she was walking a tightrope, unsure of what would happen if she lost her balance. It was a night that would forever remain etched in her memory, a night that revealed just how close she had come to witnessing a side of Elvis that few ever saw, and that many would find hard to believe. Number 2. Aftermath and Elvis's attempt to make amends. That night's encounter left Kathy Westmoreland deeply shaken. She had known Elvis to be intense, unpredictable even, but this incident marked a line she never thought he would cross. In the days that followed, she replayed the scene over and over in her mind, grappling with the shock and unease that had settled within her. The emotional strain was undeniable, leaving her drained and apprehensive about continuing to work alongside him. For years, she had been a loyal member of his team, weathering his quirks and temper because of her respect for his talent and their shared journey. But this moment had taken a toll on her well-being that couldn't be ignored. She realized she could no longer endure the unpredictability that came with touring with him. For Kathy, the decision to step away from Elvis's tour was a painful yet necessary choice, one that she hoped would allow her to regain a sense of peace and stability. Elvis, aware of the mounting tension within his group, made his own attempt at reconciliation. In a gesture that only he could pull off, he began showering his backup singers and crew with extravagant gifts, including expensive rings and jewelry. Known for his generosity, Elvis hoped these lavish tokens would soften the bitterness that had developed, a symbolic olive branch to bring his team back together. The gifts were stunning, carefully chosen, and worth thousands of dollars, intended to convey his appreciation and perhaps a silent apology. He wanted to reassure them that, despite his outbursts and occasional disregard for boundaries, he valued their loyalty and dedication. To many, these gestures were a reminder of the complexity of Elvis's character, a man capable of incredible charm and kindness, even in the midst of his own struggles. For some, the gifts rekindled their dedication to him, but for others, the scars left behind from that night could not be healed by diamonds alone. Number 1. Elvis's obsession with guns. As the years went by, Elvis Presley's fascination with guns grew into something more than just a casual interest. It became an obsession. According to his ex-wife, Priscilla Presley, Elvis's attachment to firearms went far beyond the thrill of owning them. They became almost a part of his identity. He carried them everywhere, feeling somehow reassured by their presence, as though they provided a sense of control in a world where he increasingly felt vulnerable. Priscilla observed how this fixation seemed to fuel his need for protection, both real and imagined, as he faced the pressures of fame and the emotional toll it brought. To Elvis, these guns represented strength, a tool to ward off both physical threats and the inner demons that seemed to haunt him in the later years of his life. This fascination, however, was unsettling to those around him, as they saw how his intense connection to these weapons hinted at a growing paranoia and a need to exert power, even in seemingly trivial situations. This obsession with firearms wasn't just confined to the privacy of his home. It sometimes spilled over into public spaces and even onto the stage. On more than one occasion, Elvis accidentally dropped a gun during a performance, leaving his audience shocked and his band uneasy. The sight of the king of rock and roll, gun clattering to the floor mid-show, was a jarring reminder of the complexities behind his charismatic persona. And when frustration overtook him, Elvis didn't hesitate to fire a gun to release pent-up anger, often alarming those around him. These incidents revealed a volatile side of his personality, a glimpse into the internal battles he was waging. For his closest friends and family, each incident underscored the fragile line Elvis was walking, a line between the public figure adored by millions and the man grappling with pressures that seemed to close in from all sides. It was this very edge that made his final years both fascinating and tragic, as his growing dependence on guns hinted at a deeper turmoil lurking beneath his iconic image. We'd love to hear what you think about this side of Elvis's life. Do you believe his fascination with guns was just part of his larger-than-life persona, or do you think it pointed to something deeper going on behind the scenes? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. Your insights add so much to the story, and we can't wait to see what you have to say. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was famous not only for his electrifying performances and timeless music, but also for his grueling tour schedules and late-night jam sessions that often stretched into the early hours of the morning. On most nights, Elvis thrived on this high-energy lifestyle, but one particular night was different. Exhausted from a relentless string of performances, all Elvis wanted was a little peace and quiet, a chance to finally get some much-needed rest. However, his ever-loyal and mischievous band had something else in mind. Instead of letting the king slip away into slumber, they hatched a plan to keep him awake, and what unfolded that night became one of the most unexpected and entertaining moments in Elvis's backstage history. You won't believe the lengths his band went to just to keep the party going. Stick around to find out how the night spiraled into a wild, unforgettable series of events that will have you laughing and shaking your head in disbelief. Number 5. The night in question. It was the late 1970s, and Elvis Presley was in the midst of one of his intense tour schedules, traveling from city to city, performing for thousands of adoring fans night after night. This particular night found him in a bustling city, just after wrapping up an electrifying performance in front of a packed crowd. The energy of the show was undeniable, but behind the scenes, Elvis was feeling the weight of his exhausting schedule. The long hours on stage, combined with the demands of traveling and keeping up with his band, were starting to take their toll. His voice, as powerful as ever, had belted out hit after hit, but as the final notes of the encore echoed through the concert hall, all Elvis could think about was one thing: sleep. The mood backstage was a mix of excitement and exhaustion. While his band members were still buzzing with adrenaline from the performance, Elvis himself was running on empty. He had given his all to the audience, and now he was ready to retreat to the sanctuary of his room, craving nothing more than a few hours of uninterrupted rest. He planned to quietly slip away, perhaps unwind with some soft music or a light snack before crashing into bed. But little did he know, his intention to sneak off unnoticed would be met with a different plan from his lively bandmates, who had no intention of letting the night end so easily. Number 4. The band's antics begin. Elvis's band was a tight-knit group, filled with incredibly talented musicians, who not only shared the stage with him, but also shared in the ups and downs of his whirlwind life on tour. Key members like guitarist James Burton, drummer Ronnie Tutt, and pianist Glenn D. Harden were more than just musicians. They were like family. These guys had been with Elvis through thick and thin, and they knew him well enough to sense when he was running on fumes. That night, as they gathered backstage after the show, they could see it in his eyes. The king was exhausted and ready to call it quits for the night. But rather than letting him slip away to his room for some much-needed shut-eye, the band decided that the night was still young, at least for them. They exchanged mischievous glances, knowing full well that keeping Elvis up for just a little longer would make for some good fun. What followed was a series of playful antics designed to keep Elvis from retreating into his solitude. First, they pulled light-hearted pranks, perhaps pretending to misplace his belongings or turning up the volume on the sound system just as he was getting comfortable. Then, they convinced him to join in on a spontaneous jam session, coaxing him back to his guitar or microphone for just one more song. The room was soon filled with laughter and music as they launched into old rock and roll classics, with Elvis at the center of it all, despite his initial resistance. Between the impromptu performances, the band swapped funny stories and inside jokes, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie that Elvis couldn't help but be drawn into. Every time it seemed like he was about to slip away, they'd find a new way to keep him engaged, turning what was supposed to be a quiet night into one full of unforgettable memories. Number 3. Elvis's reaction. Despite being bone-tired, Elvis was never one to let a little exhaustion get in the way of a good time, especially when it came to his beloved band. Known for his quick wit and playful personality, Elvis had a deep appreciation for the camaraderie he shared with his crew. So, when the band's pranks and spontaneous jam sessions kicked off, rather than getting frustrated, Elvis responded with his signature sense of humor. He laughed along with their antics, knowing full well they were trying to keep him from sneaking away. There was something endearing about the way he let himself be pulled back into the fun, even when all he really wanted was to crawl into bed. His tired eyes may have told one story, but his laughter and easygoing nature told another. Elvis could never resist the infectious energy of the people he cared about. At one point, after several playful interruptions, Elvis attempted to make a quiet escape, slipping out of the room when the band wasn't looking. But just as he thought he had made his getaway, they caught on and managed to lure him back with the promise of one last song. Elvis, always the entertainer at heart, couldn't help but join in, shaking his head and smiling as if to say, "You got me again." It was in these moments that the bond between Elvis and his band truly shone through. He might have been the king of rock and roll, but in these playful exchanges, he was just one of the guys, laughing, joking, and playing along, even when all he really wanted was a few hours of peace and quiet. Number 2. The surprising turn of events. As the night wore on, what started as light-hearted fun soon escalated into a full-blown event. The band, riding high on the energy of their pranks and impromptu jam sessions, showed no signs of slowing down. It wasn't long before word spread that something special was happening backstage. A few more crew members and even some close friends who were still hanging around after the show got wind of the shenanigans and decided to join in on the action. The backstage area, which had begun as a quiet refuge for Elvis, quickly transformed into an unexpected after-hours party. With more people joining in, the band's antics only grew wilder. They started playing faster, louder, egging each other on, turning what was originally just a few harmless pranks into a full-on spectacle. The mood shifted from casual fun to something that felt almost like another performance, except this time, the audience was their inner circle. Just when it seemed like the night would never end, and Elvis might be trapped in this backstage frenzy until the sun came up, someone finally stepped in to intervene. Whether it was a trusted member of his management team or one of Elvis's close confidants, they sensed that enough was enough and gently reminded everyone that the king needed his rest. The band, reluctantly realizing that their fun had reached its limit, began to wind things down, though not without a few final jokes and good-natured laughs. In true Elvis fashion, he made light of the situation, perhaps teasing them that they'd pay for it the next night on stage. As the room began to clear and the music faded, Elvis finally got his wish, a moment of quiet, though the memory of that night would surely linger, a reminder of the bond he shared with those closest to him, even in the most unexpected and exhausting of moments. Number 1. Final reveal: the unexpected. As the night reached its climax, Elvis's exhaustion was evident, but so was his undeniable connection with his band. After hours of playful antics, spontaneous music sessions, and non-stop laughter, the group finally started to let up. It became clear that the king, despite his best efforts to stay in the fun, was nearing his limit. In a final act of good-natured surrender, Elvis turned to his band with a grin and said something along the lines of, "All right, boys, you win this time, but tomorrow night, it's my turn." With that, everyone knew the fun had run its course, and it was time to let him get the rest he so desperately needed. The band, satisfied that they had gotten the best of him for the night, reluctantly called it quits, knowing full well they had created a memory that would live on in their shared stories for years to come. As Elvis finally retreated to his room, he must have felt both relief and amusement. While he may have lost a few hours of sleep, he gained a night full of joy and camaraderie that only a group of close-knit friends and musicians could provide. Despite their best efforts to keep him awake until dawn, Elvis managed to sneak in a few precious hours of rest before the next day's demands took over. In the end, it wasn't about the lack of sleep or the tiring tour schedule. It was about the bond between Elvis and his band, a bond built on trust, shared experiences, and the ability to turn even the most exhausting nights into unforgettable moments of laughter and music. That night, like so many others, showcased not only Elvis's resilience, but also his deep love for the people who stood by him through every high and low, keeping his spirit alive, even when his body was weary. The story of that wild night when Elvis just wanted to sleep, but his band had other plans, is a perfect example of the fun and lightheartedness that often surrounded the king of rock and roll. Despite his exhaustion, Elvis's sense of humor and deep connection with his bandmates turned a night of much-needed rest into an unforgettable experience filled with music, laughter, and friendship. It's moments like these that show how close-knit the group was, proving that behind the fame and the legend was a man who cherished the joy and camaraderie he shared with those around him. And now, it's your turn to join in the fun. Do you think you could have kept up with Elvis on that wild night? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the life of the king. What happens when a simple joke goes hilariously wrong in front of thousands of people? Imagine being in front of a packed concert hall, lights blazing, all eyes on you, and suddenly realizing that your lighthearted prank has taken a completely unexpected turn. That's exactly what happened to Priscilla Presley one unforgettable night during one of Elvis's concerts. She thought she'd add a bit of fun by joining him on stage, but Elvis had other plans, turning what was supposed to be a playful moment into a memory that would forever be etched in the minds of everyone watching. Tonight, we're taking you back to that incredible moment, a moment filled with suspense, laughter, and a little bit of embarrassment. Elvis turned the tables in a way no one saw coming, and you won't believe how it all unfolded. 7. Setting the scene. Elvis Presley's concerts were nothing short of electrifying events. The atmosphere buzzed with a sense of anticipation, and the moment he stepped onto the stage, a wave of excitement rippled through the crowd. The king of rock and roll knew how to captivate an audience, His charisma, his voice, and his presence were all part of the magic that made his performances legendary. Among the many routines that his fans had come to love, one stood out as a crowd favorite, bringing women from the audience on stage to give them a kiss. It was a playful and romantic gesture that thrilled the audience every time, creating a sense of intimacy between Elvis and his adoring fans. This segment became one of the most iconic parts of his live shows, adding a dash of unpredictability and personal connection that left everyone cheering and swooning. It was during one of these classic moments that Priscilla Presley decided to make her move. Priscilla, feeling the need to catch Elvis's attention in a playful way, decided to join in on the fun. As Elvis had been spending more time away, either performing or immersing himself in other activities, Priscilla was often left longing for his attention. She wanted to do something that would not only surprise him, but also remind him that she was still there, waiting and watching. The idea of joining the women on stage seemed like the perfect opportunity to add her own twist to the nightly kiss routine. She thought it would be a lighthearted joke, an amusing moment that would catch Elvis off guard while showing her playful side. With her confidence boosted by the thrill of the idea, Priscilla decided that this would be her moment, a chance to take the spotlight alongside Elvis, even if just for a few fleeting minutes. Little did she know that what she had planned as a simple prank would soon turn into a far more memorable and embarrassing experience than she had anticipated. 6. Priscilla's plan. Priscilla Presley was no stranger to the challenge of trying to keep Elvis's attention, especially as the demands of fame and the lure of the stage seemed to pull him further away from home. It wasn't that Elvis had stopped caring for her, but rather that his larger-than-life career often left Priscilla feeling like she was just another part of the background. In moments like these, she felt a need to stand out, to do something that would remind Elvis she was still there, just as vibrant and full of life as when they first met. This motivation, coupled with her playful spirit, is what led her to hatch a plan to catch Elvis's eye in the middle of one of his concerts. She knew this wasn't just about getting a laugh. It was a way to reconnect with Elvis in a setting where he was truly in his element, where he was alive in a way that he often wasn't at home. To pull off her prank, Priscilla chose her outfit deliberately, something that would not only make her stand out, but also create a bit of mystery and drama. She wore a sleek black dress with a hood and a daringly low-cut back, an outfit that was perfect for both blending in at first and then making a dramatic reveal. From the back, her appearance gave the impression of someone bold, possibly even scandalous, especially under the concert lights. With her hair covering the straps of the dress, the effect was even more pronounced. At first glance, it looked as though she might be topless. This was the element of surprise that Priscilla hoped would grab Elvis's attention immediately. It was risky, of course, but that was part of the thrill. She knew Elvis loved spontaneity, and she wanted to give him, and the audience, something to remember. As the moment came, Priscilla joined the line of eager women waiting to go on stage, her heart pounding with anticipation. She could hear the cheering of the crowd, feel the adrenaline as each fan stepped up for her moment with Elvis. When it was her turn, Priscilla stepped onto the stage with confidence, expecting a quick, light-hearted kiss from Elvis, and then a return to her seat amid the laughter of the audience. She imagined Elvis's reaction, maybe a laugh, a look of surprise, and a twinkle in his eye that let her know the joke had landed just right. It was supposed to be over in a matter of seconds, a playful interruption to his usual routine, a way of reminding Elvis and everyone else of the unique connection they shared. Little did Priscilla know, however, that Elvis had noticed her right away, and he was not about to let her off the hook so easily. This joke was about to become a much longer and more public moment than she ever anticipated. 5. Elvis's unexpected reaction. When Elvis noticed Priscilla among the line of eager fans, it must have taken him by surprise. There she was, dressed to stun, standing alongside the other women who were all vying for his attention. But instead of reacting the way Priscilla had imagined, smiling, perhaps chuckling at the joke, and giving her that quick kiss, Elvis made a different choice. He kept his cool, never breaking from his performance, and continued singing, almost as if she were just another fan. It was clear that he recognized her, but instead of making it easy, he decided to prolong the moment. Elvis, always a master of showmanship, saw an opportunity to flip the script and play along in his own way, leaving Priscilla standing there, awkwardly caught between her own joke and the reality of the performance. The audience, of course, had no idea of the playful tension between the couple, but Priscilla felt every second of it as Elvis continued, seemingly oblivious to her presence. Desperate to regain control of the situation, Priscilla began to quietly plead with Elvis, her nervous whispers nearly drowned out by the music and the cheering crowd. Kiss me so I can sit down," she kept saying, her voice betraying the mixture of embarrassment and amusement she was feeling. But Elvis wasn't ready to let her off the hook. Instead of giving in to her request, he kept her waiting, standing there in the spotlight, while he continued his song. It was his way of playfully turning the tables, a subtle but powerful reminder of who commanded the stage. The longer she stood there, the more uncomfortable she became, and it must have felt like an eternity before Elvis finally acknowledged her in any significant way. He knew exactly what he was doing, stretching out the moment, making her feel every ounce of the audience's gaze as they watched in bewilderment. It was no longer just a light-hearted joke, it had become a test of nerves, a moment that showcased not just Elvis's control over the performance, but the complex dynamics of their relationship as well. Chapter 4. The audience's reaction. As Priscilla stood on that stage with the spotlight beaming down on her and Elvis continuing his song, the audience couldn't help but react to what they saw. From their perspective, Priscilla's daring black dress, with its hood and an exceptionally low-cut back, created quite an illusion. With her hair falling over the straps of the dress, she appeared, at least from the back, to be bare from the waist up. The crowd let out a collective gasp, followed by a series of curious oohs and ahs that filled the concert hall. The spectacle before them was unexpected. It wasn't just a random fan who had come up on stage. It was a mysterious, seemingly topless woman, daringly confronting Elvis Presley. The whispers spread quickly through the audience, and every pair of eyes was glued to the stage, waiting to see what would happen next. The tension was palpable, and each second that passed only amplified the sense of wonder and curiosity among the fans. For Priscilla, what started as an amusing attempt to catch her husband off guard was now turning into something much different. Hearing the crowd's reactions, the gasps, the laughter, the intrigued murmurs, only deepened her sense of unease. She could feel the audience analyzing her, wondering who this woman was and why she was standing so boldly before the king of rock and roll. The very illusion that made her look topless, which had originally seemed like a clever part of her prank, now left her feeling exposed, vulnerable, and very much the center of attention. With each passing second, the initial thrill was fading, replaced by an awkwardness that only grew as the crowd continued to react. She tried to get Elvis's attention with whispered pleas, but the longer he ignored her, the more evident it became that she was not in control of this moment. Elvis was, and he intended to keep it that way. As Elvis carried on with his performance, seemingly unfazed by her presence, Priscilla's struggle became increasingly apparent. The spotlight, bright and unrelenting, made her feel as if she were under a magnifying glass, every movement scrutinized by the thousands of fans in attendance. She could feel her face flushing, her heartbeat quickening as she tried, in vain, to maintain her composure. She kept glancing at Elvis, hoping for a quick end to the spectacle, but he was thoroughly enjoying the situation. He sang with the same charisma and energy as always, his voice unwavering, while Priscilla stood there, caught between laughter and embarrassment. She shifted uncomfortably, trying to appear at ease, but her whispered requests, kiss me so I can sit down," fell on deaf ears. Elvis held her in that spotlight, masterfully using the moment to build tension, ensuring that all eyes stayed on them. It was a testament to his unmatched control over any stage he stood on. This was his world, and tonight, Priscilla was learning just how powerful his presence could be, even when the joke was supposed to be on him. 3. The grand reveal. As the song finally drew to a close, Elvis seemed ready to put an end to the tension he had masterfully orchestrated. The final notes echoed through the hall, and the audience's anticipation reached a fever pitch. It was as if everyone in that room was holding their breath, waiting to see what he would do next. Then, in true Elvis fashion, he turned toward Priscilla with that famous smile of his, the one that could charm an entire stadium. Without missing a beat, he leaned in and planted a big, dramatic kiss on her lips. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, the tension transforming into pure excitement as the king acknowledged the mysterious woman who had captivated them throughout the performance. Elvis, always one for theatrics, made sure this was no ordinary kiss. It was grand, full of flair, a gesture that not only acknowledged Priscilla, but also gave the audience the payoff they had been waiting for. But Elvis wasn't finished just yet. After that show-stopping kiss, he surprised everyone, Priscilla included, by turning back to the microphone and introducing her to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, this here is my beautiful wife Priscilla," he announced, his voice booming across the auditorium. The crowd's reaction was explosive, with cheers and whistles filling the venue. It was a twist that nobody had expected, not even Priscilla herself. In that moment, the prank had come full circle, but not at all in the way Priscilla had imagined. Instead of remaining anonymous, playing her joke and slipping quietly back to her seat, she found herself fully revealed under the bright stage lights. Elvis, with his knack for creating unforgettable moments, had made sure she was not just a part of the show, but one of its highlights. Priscilla's reaction was a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and perhaps a touch of reluctant amusement. She could feel her face turning red as the crowd cheered, the sheer volume of it washing over her. The spotlight that had felt so harsh moments ago now seemed even more intense as she stood there, exposed not just to the eyes of thousands, but now also introduced as Elvis's wife. She managed to muster a smile, giving a small wave to the audience, but all she really wanted was to make her way back to her seat as quickly as possible. She turned, her movements hurried, almost awkward, as she made her way down the steps, feeling the eyes of the entire venue following her every step. The relief she felt when she finally reached her seat was palpable. She could finally sink back into the shadows, away from the intense focus of the spotlight. It had been a memorable night, one filled with more embarrassment than she had bargained for, but also a moment that perfectly encapsulated the unpredictable nature of life with Elvis, the king of rock and roll, a man who could turn any moment into an unforgettable performance. 2. Priscilla's reflections. In her book, Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley offers an intimate glimpse into her life with Elvis, including that unforgettable night on stage. She describes the overwhelming mix of emotions she felt, excitement, nervousness, and ultimately embarrassment as her prank spiraled out of her control. She recounts the way her carefully planned joke quickly lost its intended humor as Elvis refused to play along, instead choosing to leave her stranded in the spotlight, exposed to the watchful eyes of thousands of spectators. Priscilla writes about how, in that moment, the audience's laughter and cheers began to feel like they were directed at her predicament rather than her intended playfulness. The feeling of vulnerability was undeniable, and she admits that what was supposed to be a fun, light-hearted attempt to share a moment with Elvis ended up leaving her flushed and eager to escape the spotlight. The audience's roaring reactions, the sudden shift of focus, and the prolonged attention were more than she had bargained for. This onstage moment was just one of the many ways Priscilla had tried to capture Elvis's often elusive attention. Life with Elvis wasn't easy. His constant travel, demanding career, and the endless adoration of fans often left Priscilla feeling sidelined, an afterthought in a world that revolved around the king of rock and roll. In her book, she shares how these kinds of stunts were her way of reminding Elvis of her presence, of standing out amidst the chaos of his public life. However, she admits that her attempt to insert herself into his world on stage did not go as planned. Instead of the brief moment of intimacy she hoped for, she found herself caught in a situation that was both amusing and deeply humbling. It was a reminder that Elvis, with his charisma and control, could turn any situation into a performance, one where even Priscilla had to play by his rules. Despite the awkwardness, it was an experience that perfectly illustrated the complex, unpredictable dynamics of their relationship, marked by love, playfulness, and the constant challenge of being in Elvis's orbit. 1. Other attempts to get Elvis's attention. Priscilla Presley's efforts to keep Elvis's attention went beyond her playful pranks. She often used her appearance to stand out in a world that was constantly competing for his focus. With Elvis being surrounded by admirers, whether on tour or even in his own home, Priscilla had to find creative ways to ensure she remained at the center of his attention. One such method was through her choice of clothing. Priscilla began wearing increasingly daring outfits, experimenting with styles that were bold, revealing, and designed to make a statement. She opted for skimpy knit dresses, see-through fabrics, and other clothing that pushed the boundaries of what was expected at the time. She knew that her appearance was something that could easily capture Elvis's eye, even in the midst of the chaos of his fame. These outfits weren't just about fashion. They were part of her strategy to maintain her place in his life, a way of reminding Elvis, and everyone else, of the captivating woman by his side. There is one anecdote in particular that perfectly highlights how Priscilla's strategy worked. During a light-hearted moment, Elvis was playfully teasing his father, Vernon, for flirting with a woman. As the joking conversation unfolded, Elvis's gaze shifted to Priscilla, and with a mix of pride and warning, he pointed out her daring outfit. He remarked, "You're going to have problems of your own if your wife goes out in the street looking like that," making it clear that Priscilla's bold fashion choices had certainly caught his attention. It was exactly the reaction Priscilla had hoped for. She wanted Elvis to notice, to be reminded of her presence, to take pride in her, and perhaps even feel a twinge of jealousy. In those moments, she succeeded in not just being the woman in the background, but in taking center stage, reminding Elvis that she was someone worth watching. These efforts, though sometimes subtle and sometimes overt, were part of the ongoing dance of their relationship. Priscilla continually finding ways to be seen in a world where Elvis's attention was a highly sought-after prize. This night on stage became one of the most memorable and amusing moments in the complicated and vibrant relationship between Elvis and Priscilla. It was a perfect reflection of the playful yet unpredictable dynamics they shared. A moment where Priscilla's attempt to take charge of the spotlight ended up being turned back on her by Elvis, who always knew how to put on a show. Though it was filled with embarrassment for Priscilla at the time, it was also a shared laugh, a story that became part of the unique history they built together. It spoke volumes about their love, which was full of surprises, fun, and moments where each tried to outdo the other in affection and attention. Ultimately, it was an experience that not only brought them closer, but also gave them a shared memory to look back on, filled with both humor and a reminder of Elvis's unmatched charisma. It's moments like these that remind us that even legends like Elvis had their own relationship quirks, their own ways of teasing and loving each other in front of the world. What do you think Priscilla felt in that spotlight? What would make Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, lose his cool on stage in front of thousands? It's hard to imagine the calm, magnetic performer letting his emotions spill over under the spotlight. But on one unforgettable night in Las Vegas, that's exactly what happened. Tonight, we're diving into a night when Elvis, who had always kept his struggles behind the curtain, couldn't hold back his frustrations any longer. It all unraveled before an audience who never saw it coming. As we piece together the story, we'll pull back the layers of personal struggles and professional pressures that built into a relentless pressure cooker of fame. A single moment broke it all open, revealing a side of Elvis that fans, friends, and even his closest confidants rarely saw. What could have sparked such an explosive reaction from a performer known for his charm and poise? Stay tuned as we explore this rare glimpse behind the legend and into the very human struggles he tried so hard to keep hidden. Number 5. Background setup. The King under pressure. In the early 1970s, Elvis Presley's Las Vegas residency at the Hilton was legendary, but it came at a steep personal cost. Performing show after show, sometimes twice a day, he was always in the spotlight, a tireless entertainer committed to thrilling his audiences. This relentless schedule, though, wore on him, physically and mentally. It was a demand unlike anything he'd ever experienced before, a ceaseless grind that would challenge even the strongest performers. Every night, he poured his heart and energy onto that stage, yet beneath the dazzling lights and standing ovations, something was starting to crack. Outside of his performances, rumors about Elvis's well-being were swirling like wildfire. Whispers of health issues and allegations of drug use became tabloid staples, feeding a media frenzy that seemed impossible to escape. Reporters speculated about his personal life and painted a troubling picture of a rock and roll icon struggling to maintain his footing. These rumors followed him everywhere, adding to the pressure he felt both on and off stage. Fans expected the Elvis of the 1950s, the icon with unshakable charisma and boundless energy, and he was desperate to live up to that. But as the rumors grew louder, so did his internal struggles, and he found himself trying to hold up an image that felt increasingly out of reach. Among those closest to him was his longtime friend Jerry Schilling, who watched Elvis cope with the immense pressure of his career. Jerry saw the toll it took, describing how Elvis, normally calm and controlled, seemed different on the night of this particular show. He wasn't himself that night, Jerry later recalled. The pressure was building up. Jerry's words captured the essence of what was happening beneath Elvis's polished exterior, a mix of frustration, fatigue, and vulnerability that would soon culminate in an unforgettable, explosive moment. Number 4. Building tension, a glimpse into his mind. As the hours counted down before showtime, Elvis Presley was facing a battle few could see. For years, he had managed to hide the weight of his struggles behind the powerful, magnetic performer the world adored. But, as his girlfriend at the time, Linda Thompson, would later reflect, people saw the entertainer, but they didn't understand the man. She witnessed the way he carried the expectations of millions like a heavy cloak, always determined to keep his struggles invisible, concealed beneath his fame. Behind the legendary smile and effortless charm, he was carrying a quieter, more solitary weight, one few truly understood. Elvis's patience, however, was beginning to fray. The endless cycle of rumors seemed to shadow him, creeping into every aspect of his life. His name was splashed across headlines in stories that seemed increasingly invasive, questioning his health, his lifestyle, and even his ability to keep going. The relentless noise of the press felt like a constant hum that was getting louder with each passing day, making it hard for him to stay focused on the one place he had always felt free: the stage. Each time he stepped out under the lights, he knew he was expected to be flawless, to be Elvis, the legend who could do no wrong. But the distractions were becoming harder to ignore, chipping away at the calm he tried so hard to maintain. And on this particular night, things felt different. Elvis was emotionally exhausted, pushed closer to his breaking point than ever before. Those closest to him sensed the tension that radiated off him, a kind of restlessness and fatigue that even he couldn't quite hide. It was as though he was a coil wound too tightly, ready to snap under the strain. This was not just another performance. There was an unmistakable weight in the air, a tension that hinted at something brewing beneath the surface. The audience was expecting a show, but what they would get was a glimpse of the man behind the music, the frustration and exhaustion he had kept locked away finally slipping through. This night would be unlike any other, and Elvis himself may have sensed that the moment was coming when his emotions would break free. Number 3. The incident unfolds, the heckler and the explosion. As the show reached its midpoint, the crowd was fully engaged, captivated by Elvis's charisma and energy. Yet amidst the applause and cheers, a lone voice cut through, breaking the spell with an intrusive, jarring comment. A heckler in the audience shouted out something sharp and accusatory, making a crude remark about Elvis's rumored drug use, a rumor that had plagued him relentlessly in the press. It was a comment laced with judgment, feeding into the tabloid narrative that Elvis was struggling with substances behind the scenes. Normally, Elvis would have brushed it off with grace or a quick joke. But tonight, that single remark seemed to pierce through him, landing in a way that others hadn't. Without hesitation, Elvis turned towards the source of the interruption, his eyes narrowed with a mix of anger and pain. In a voice that echoed through the stunned silence, he called out the heckler directly, breaking his usual cool demeanor. "You don't have any respect for me as a person." His tone was firm, almost biting, a stark contrast to the relaxed, charming Elvis his fans were used to. The air thickened as he continued, addressing not only the heckler but the entire crowd, unleashing his frustrations in a moment of raw honesty. His voice, filled with an unfiltered vulnerability, cut deeper as he added, "You people don't know what I've gone through." It was a rare admission of his personal struggles, words that echoed far beyond the four walls of the showroom. The audience, taken aback, sat in silence. This wasn't the polished icon they had come to see. This was a man bearing his wounds in front of them. Fans exchanged glances, processing the shock of seeing their idol, usually untouchable, reveal the emotional toll he was carrying. It was as if, for a brief moment, the king of rock and roll had pulled back the curtain on his own humanity. Some felt an aching sympathy, understanding that they were witnessing the burden he bore to keep them entertained. For others, it was unsettling to see Elvis in this vulnerable state. But for everyone in the room, it was a moment they'd never forget. A raw, unscripted glimpse into the struggles of a man who, for all his fame, was still only human. Number 2. Aftermath and reflections. After the show, Elvis retreated backstage, where Linda Thompson, his girlfriend at the time, found him. She recalled how his emotions were still raw, a strange mix of regret and relief flickering across his face. He knew he had stepped out of character, letting his frustrations spill onto the stage in a way he rarely allowed. Part of him regretted letting the audience see that side of him, exposing his inner battles in a moment meant for entertainment. But there was also a sense of relief. In that unplanned outburst, he had finally vented some of the pressure that had been building for months, possibly even years. For once, he hadn't bottled up his feelings behind his signature smile. He had let the world see that, despite his fame, he was vulnerable, something he both feared and perhaps needed. Jerry Schilling, one of Elvis's closest friends, understood this struggle better than most. He had seen firsthand the weight Elvis carried daily, from the constant demands of fame to his inner battles that no amount of applause could alleviate. Jerry later spoke about the immense pressure his friend was under, noting that while Elvis lived for the stage, the harsh spotlight often amplified his pain. It wasn't just about performing, Jerry explained. It was about living up to an image, an expectation that Elvis felt he could never escape. The public saw Elvis as an icon, but those closest to him saw a man who was haunted by insecurities, a man whose life was dominated by the struggle to balance his personal identity with his superstar persona. That night wasn't the only time his frustrations would surface. 2 years later, in July 1975, during a performance in Asheville, North Carolina, Elvis's perfectionist side led to another glimpse of his inner turmoil. When the band missed a beat during "And I Love You So," Elvis stopped the song and addressed them, his frustration evident as he urged his musicians to meet his exacting standards. For Elvis, performing was serious business. Every note and every beat mattered. These occasional outbursts weren't just anger, but a reflection of the immense pressure he placed on himself. They revealed the high expectations he held for his art and the toll it took on him when things didn't go as planned. Through these moments, audiences witnessed a man fighting to keep control in a world that often felt overwhelmingly out of reach. Number 1. The man behind the legend, a cry for understanding. Behind the glitz, glamour, and larger-than-life performances, Elvis Presley was still just a man, one burdened by immense pressure, endless scrutiny, and expectations so high they seemed impossible to meet. While fans saw the magnetic entertainer, the man who set the stage on fire with every performance, few could truly grasp the weight he carried behind the scenes. Living in a relentless spotlight meant that every move, every word, every glance was dissected, judged, and often misunderstood. It was a life where privacy was a luxury he could barely afford, where vulnerability was seen as a flaw, and where the line between the icon and the individual became increasingly blurred. For Elvis, who always aimed to give everything he had to his fans, the pressure to constantly live up to his public persona took an exhausting toll. These rare moments of outburst weren't merely lapses in patience. They were raw expressions of a man fighting battles the world rarely saw. Each angry word, each flash of frustration revealed a glimpse into the struggles he could never fully articulate. Fame had brought him adoration, but it had also created a cage, trapping him in a life that demanded perfection and gave no room for human frailty. In those tense moments, like the one in Las Vegas or Asheville, his fans witnessed something deeper than a performer's annoyance. They saw a person struggling against the weight of his own image, grappling with the pressures of a world that expected him to always be Elvis, the king. His outbursts became a language of their own, silent pleas for understanding in a world that wanted only the legend and not the man. This was Elvis Presley. A legend, yes, but also a man who, even in his most private struggles, could not escape the stage's unyielding spotlight. The audience may have only glimpsed his frustration, but those fleeting moments were filled with a lifetime's worth of pain and resilience. In every pause and every heated word, he revealed that even the most iconic figures are not immune to the human experience. He was proof that beneath the fame and talent was a man whose moments of frustration and vulnerability connected him to us all, making his legacy as much about his humanity as it was about his music. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this side of Elvis, the moments when the pressures of fame broke through? Do you see these outbursts as glimpses into his humanity, or do they reveal something else about the legend we all know and love? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. We're excited to read what you have to say. February 18th, 1973, a date seared into the memories of Elvis fans worldwide. Imagine the king himself, electrifying the stage with his legendary charisma when suddenly chaos erupts. Four figures charge forward, breaking the magic of the moment, and what happens next is nothing short of chilling. The sounds of the frenzy were captured in a rare audio recording that holds secrets you won't believe. But here's the question. If your favorite artist faced an attack right before your eyes, how would you react? Stay with us as we unravel the shocking story behind this unforgettable night. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was known for commanding the stage with an unmatched energy that captivated audiences worldwide. His live performances were more than just concerts. They were experiences, moments where fans felt connected to his charisma and larger-than-life persona. But on one fateful night, that electrifying connection was shattered by an unexpected and shocking event that sent waves of panic through the crowd. The energy of the performance shifted dramatically, leaving fans stunned and desperate for answers. What truly unfolded during those critical moments has remained shrouded in mystery, until now. In this video, we uncover a rare and spine-chilling audio recording from that very night, a piece of history that captures the chaos as it erupted in real time. But that's not all. As the tension builds, we'll also hear from Sonny West, a trusted member of Elvis's inner circle, who provides a gripping first-hand account of what happened and the following startling details. Stay tuned, because the revelations we're about to share will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this unforgettable moment. The night was supposed to be like any other for Elvis Presley, a sold-out crowd, electrifying music, and an atmosphere thick with anticipation. But as the performance reached its peak, something completely unexpected and unnerving happened. Out of nowhere, 4 men broke through the crowd and stormed the stage with unsettling determination. Their intentions were unclear, their presence alarming, and the energy of the audience shifted in an instant. Fans, once enthralled by the music, were now gripped with fear and confusion, watching helplessly as chaos unfolded before their eyes. In the midst of the mayhem, Elvis's trusted team sprang into action with remarkable bravery. They quickly formed a protective barrier around him, their sole focus to shield the king from harm. As the men closed in, details began to surface. One of them was carrying an object later identified as a weapon. The tension was palpable, every moment feeling like an eternity as the crowd watched with bated breath. What exactly was their plan? And how did Elvis and his team manage to defuse the situation so swiftly? The answers lie in the gripping details and rare audio recording that reveal the full extent of what transpired that night. What if I told you that the chaos of that unforgettable night wasn't just witnessed, but captured in a way that sends chills down your spine? Among the sea of fans that evening, one person had the presence of mind to hit record, preserving the raw sounds of the pandemonium that erupted. The frantic shouts, the unmistakable commotion, and a few hauntingly clear moments of Elvis's own voice. All of it was etched onto a rare audio recording. This isn't just a piece of history. It's an unfiltered window into the terrifying moments that unfolded on stage. Hearing it, you can almost feel the tension in the air, as if you were right there among the crowd, witnessing the unthinkable. As the audio plays, the details start to come alive. You hear the surge of the audience, gasps of disbelief, and the muffled sounds of movement that hint at the chaos unraveling on stage. Was that a shout of warning? Or perhaps the sound of someone being restrained? Each moment in the recording leaves you more curious, pulling you deeper into the mystery. But here's the thing, what you've heard so far is just a glimpse. The full story, and the shocking truths revealed by this recording, are even more gripping than you can imagine. Stay with us as we take you step by step through this rare piece of history, uncovering what really happened that night. Now, let's shift to someone who experienced this unforgettable night firsthand. Sonny West, a trusted member of Elvis's inner circle and a key figure in his legendary security team. Sonny wasn't just an observer, he was right in the thick of the chaos, witnessing every detail unfold. His vivid retelling brings the event to life in a way that words alone cannot capture. He describes the attackers' actions with chilling clarity, their unexpected rush to the stage, the determination in their movements, and the moments of pure uncertainty as the team quickly assessed the threat. These weren't just ordinary fans. They were individuals whose motives remained unclear, making the situation even more alarming. Sonny also sheds light on the incredible teamwork and quick thinking that ultimately ensured Elvis's safety. He recounts how the security team moved instinctively, forming a protective barrier around Elvis within seconds. Each team member had a role to play, and they executed it flawlessly, diffusing a potentially disastrous situation before it spiraled further out of control. Sonny's account is filled with gripping details, from the discovery of a concealed weapon to the tense standoff as the attackers were removed from the venue. Through his eyes, we gain an intimate glimpse into the chaos and bravery of that night, a moment where everything hung in the balance. Yet the king and his team triumphed against the odds. Stay tuned, because Sonny's story reveals layers of this shocking event that few have ever heard before.
That were into topless bars and dope, and we found out later when the Las Vegas police ran plates on them, they had carried arms. This one guy runs up on the stage and starts towards Elvis, and he's got a sweater over his hand and his forearm. Red was behind him, caught up with him just before he got there. Grabbed him in a headlock and just kept going right off the stage with him. Didn't even interrupt the show. I mean, Elvis was that. Then he turned him over to a security guard back there, and he came back out because now the rest of the table, about 6 or 8 more guys, are starting to come up there. One of them's got some tape on his knuckles. And so Elvis confronted him, and then I jumped in between, and Jerry Schilling jumped in between. Rip came back, and we started just throwing them off the stage. And they were disrupting the show, and one of the guys had a sword cane, which we found out later was just a cane to us, but the police, when they arrested him, he had a sword cane, which was he had a weapon that he wasn't supposed to have. So they took them, but as they were taking these folks out, the police, hotel security, they were taking these people out, and as they did, fans were hitting on them as they went by like a gauntlet. How dare you do that? And Elvis is up there spinning around doing karate kicks and everything like that. There's no one around him. He's whipping up on somebody up there. But afterwards he said, I'll break their necks if they come back up here again. Well, they took them down, they ran a maintenance when they found out what all they were in. Some of them all of them had records. And they told them about the Memphis Mafia. Well, now these guys took the Memphis Mafia to be mafia, like New York and Kansas City, New York. They asked him to please just they thought they had stepped into a hornet's nest. They weren't thinking about us. They thought there was a Memphis Mafia other than us that was behind Elvis, and they asked to be escorted.
The aftermath of that chaotic night raised more questions than answers, leaving fans and insiders alike wondering, what drove these individuals to rush the stage? What were their intentions? As the attackers were subdued and escorted away, a startling discovery added a chilling layer to the incident. One of them had been carrying a sword cane, a seemingly ordinary object hiding a concealed blade. This revelation sent shockwaves through Elvis's team and fans, as it underscored the seriousness of the threat they had just faced. Who were these men, and why were they armed at a live performance? These questions lingered long after the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, leaving an unsettling cloud over an otherwise electrifying night. In the days that followed, the event became a pivotal moment in the way security was handled at Elvis's concerts. The team didn't just brush this off as an isolated incident. They recognized it as a wake-up call. Security measures were tightened, protocols reevaluated, and the safety of both Elvis and his audience was prioritized like never before. The attackers, removed from the venue under heavy guard, were left to face the consequences of their actions, though the details of their motivations remained murky. What's clear is that this event changed the landscape of live performances for the king, serving as a stark reminder that even the brightest spotlight can cast the darkest shadows. Stay tuned, because there's even more to uncover about how this night shaped the future of Elvis's iconic career. If you've been captivated by this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive into Elvis's fascinating life. Don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying the content. It helps us bring you more untold stories just like this. And we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. What do you think motivated the attackers